This Saturday at 5 p.m. India time, we are going to interact with Mr. Gopal A Iyer, who is a gig expert. What is gig economy? This is not new to India. We always have known on demand labor for time or for the task that they do. We have been hiring them for ages immemorial, starting with farm labor. Now, when new technology and new industries are getting in the vogue, gig economy is also gaining popularity. According to a World Bank survey report, nearly 1% of our population are called gig workers. And very developed countries like Canada, Australia, and many European countries and US have a significant portion beyond 10 to 15% of their workforce called gig workers. In India, in the recent phenomenon, we have known gig platforms like Uber, Dunzo, Ola, Swiggy, Urban Company, Flipkart, Amazon, all of these examples of gig platforms. There are new organizations and new platforms are emerging as we speak. So why are we talking about that in our channel? As a leadership coach and organizational consultant, I'm very curious how this disruption is shaping the industry, especially for leaders, managers. How do you manage your work? How do you manage your team with diverse background? Some of them could be on your payroll or on a retainership basis. Some of them could be on a gig or just a particular task or a time. How do you manage such vast diversified workforce? Do you pay them on time? Do you have systems and processes and technology required to manage such gig workers? Do you have large scale network of gig workers on your database so you can call them at short notice? That would be my interest. There is a saying, work is no longer a place where we go, right? So this pandemic has really redefined the way we work. Many senior, mid-level, and even entry-level jobs are broken into smaller tasks, which could be done by people sitting remotely. So remote working, work from home are all part of new normal now. As a leader, how do you cope with it? How do you adapt your leadership style to integrate and assimilate this diversified workforce? That would be my interest. And let us discuss with Gopal to know more about what does gig economy mean to us. If you are an independent professional trying to get a share of this action, then you would know that this is a session you should not miss. If you're a corporate leader who is trying to explore how do we create system where pay for performance, pay for result is passed on to the client as a lower cost of operation, thereby you are staying competitive in the market. So all of these are topics that we're going to discuss. There is a Google form link below. Please share your question, share your comments, and what expectations do you have from this interactive session. Please do share your thoughts and log in 5 p.m. this Saturday, 19th of June, 2021. We will be waiting for you. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Whenever we go live or add a new video, you will get notification. Thank you so much. Hi, good afternoon, good evening, good morning to all of you, wherever you're joining in from. Thank you so much for being here. We hope you're safe and healthy. Please do wear your mask throughout. And I think the worst is not over yet. Our hearts go out for people who have lost the battle for the pandemic. I think rest of us should stay strong and continue their legacy. And for that, we need to be safe. So please do wear your mask and follow all the safety protocols. And if you're new here, please do consider subscribing for this channel, because we bring in more and more experts to demystify, understand, and also to clarify some of our doubts, so that we can move forward with a lot of confidence. Change is constant. That's our mantra. So we are going to prepare ourselves better for the changes which are going to come. There are a lot of disruptive changes happening around us. One of them is gig economy. You have been part of this journey quite some time, and you have seen the teaser and the trailer that Gopal and I have been promoting on the various social media platforms. And when I started interacting with Gopal on this topic, I felt quite excited because he's not only an expert, but also someone who sees this in a different perspective. The very first time we put out the poll for people to vote what are their thoughts, and you see the kind of engagement we got. Nearly 50 votes on the survey link I shared. And then when Gopal shared his on his LinkedIn platform, we got close to 100. And then still people are interacting with us through Google form. There is a questionnaire. This is just one question where people are asking uh, their doubts, and we have compiled all of these. And Gopal has also been kind enough to put energy in creating a slide deck for us to navigate this area. So, without much further ado, I would like to invite Gopal to our stream. Hi, Gopal.
Hey Bhaskar, hi.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be a guest on this show. It's been a wonderful journey preparing to this day. So,
Absolutely.
what
Pleasure
is
is
your
mine
experience
totally.
like?
It's been a great I think last couple of weeks since when we started talking through this. I know we had plans to speak about this for a while. Um, Given my recent role changes, I couldn't manage to find time. But I think one of the interesting aspects about gig is that one, it was always there. It is there, and it will always be there as well. So we will have to continue to see how best we can demystify some of the myths that exists about gig. I'll try my best today through my uh, the slide deck that I've put together, but also happy to take questions as they come. I know we have got quite a number of questions, but we'll see how it goes.
And we have less time to cover the
Yes.
all the ground. And please, audience who are there live listening to this and watching this, please post your comments and questions on the window below so that we can take it up with Gopal. So Gopal, you have prepared a short deck
Yeah.
to introduce us to this new disruption.
Yeah.
It's not new to India as such, but we are experiencing it in a new fashion, I
World.
guess,
Yeah.
because of
Yeah. True.
technology.
True. So let me get to that right away without probably delaying it any further. Um, Please confirm when you can see the screen.
Yes. Can you put it on slideshow mode?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. So I think we will today, through the course of the conversation for the next 15-20 minutes, cover some of the aspects of gig economy or anything that you would have heard around gig economy. And it's indeed a pleasure to be part of this forum, talking to you all. And I would thank Bhaskar to have invited me for the session. Um, this is just about me. Anyone who wants to be in touch with me or want to connect with me, the QR code is that of a LinkedIn. You can feel free to take a quick snapshot of that, and probably we can take it offline and discuss anything that you may have doubts, questions, queries over uh, anything about gig or even beyond. Uh, just a bit on the world that we live in. As Bhaskar rightly said, it's been I would say, tough last 15 to 20 months. And I think the disruption that it has caused to people around the world, including people in India, not just in cities, but even the villages and towns, has been one that has been an extremely fast paced. I don't think we could have done anything much to be able to manage the wave two uh, as well as we did, probably. But of course, it's a debatable one, and I would just hope that we don't have to see another wave, and we don't have to lose many more people to COVID. But what has happened, and if you really see both the graphs of COVID and the wave in just a graphical format, it was a rampant surge in numbers, which also says that things are moving at an unprecedented pace. The kind of disruption that we have all seen in the last 12 to 15 months or 20 months now has been very, I mean, very challenging for some people, especially people in hospitality, people in the medical to begin with in the past, and even now. I mean, I think it's a problem of abundance in terms of not being able to manage the kind of catastrophe or a pandemic that we are going through, aviation and many more. Right? I think there are a lot of industries that have gotten, um, I mean, I would say hit badly. Some have. Uh, I don't think any business would have really said that we made the best out of it in a sense which they can be proud about. I mean, I think there is an definite plus for certain industries like technology who have made really good. Uh, I mean, supported this pandemic well. I mean, I can't imagine a situation where we were in the similar situation 10 years ago if we would have been able to make a seamless transition. Having said that, this is going to be the pace of change. Now, the real question that we all need to ask ourselves is: are we really ready to be able to manage a pandemic like this, or even smaller than this? And can we continue to redefine ourselves to adapt to the changes that are needed to be able to survive? Now, some metrics that matter. Now, we heard from Bhaskar about what gig economy is, but the addressable market, some stats say that it's about $1.5 trillion. Over 77 million freelancers are currently operating in Europe, India, and the US. In fact, the India number just keeps growing and growing because of the sheer size of the population that we are all. um, 48% millennials use gig platforms to find work. We'll talk about a bit on platforms shortly. Close to 37% of full time freelancers and independent gig workers are relatively young and aged between 21 to 38. Uh, these are some really interesting stats. And India added 1.2 million flexi workers since 2015 and is expected to add nearly 6.1 million by 2021. Would be really interesting to see what that number looks like today. I think the startup ecosystem that we are all seeing right now surging ahead, the likes of Facebook as a platform, the likes of GoDaddy that helps people create websites, and Razorpay and all payment sites for that matter, prove that there is a growth that is happening at an unprecedented pace. And it is great in one way that people are adopting to this model of working really well, but there is also a digital divide that we really need to plug the gap to be able to support people who are not able to. And we will try to see how best we can support that argument today through the conversation. So,
Sure.
what are the
Gopal, if I may step in
yes,
on the numbers part.
yes,
Every year, close to a million youth are celebrating their 18th birthday.
yes,
Sorry, every month, my bad. That means 12 to 14 million youth are joining the workforce, or at least the age of working age group they are entering into, which means they are competing the formal job market, informal job market, and so on. And do
yeah,
we have that many jobs? I don't think so. So I
absolutely.
think
You
when
said
we
it
look
really
at that,
well.
yes, it's going to
Absolutely.
be a big gap this gig economy is going to fill in. Yeah, like there are arguments about robots replacing humans,
Yes,
artificial intelligence taking away our job, machine learning evolving in a better way. All of
true.
these, while it's happening in one end, we have lot many jobs which are required to be filled in by flexi workers. I think
Yeah.
that's the reality we live in, right?
Yep, yep, very well said. And I think if you really look at the way even some of the aspirants who are looking for careers have very different set of expectations from what they want to do in their first jobs or careers as such. And the sheer amount of number of startups that we keep adding on a monthly basis is a testimony to the fact that the needs are changing, and we need to look at it from a more holistic perspective, as an industry to see how best are we ready to adapt to this model of gig, as well as our people from a mindset perspective ready to be part of this ecosystem as well. Gig is an ecosystem play. It's not anything else but that, right? So we'll see what more we can learn. Quickly on various economies, right? We heard about gig economies where we see independent workers, contract workers for short term engagements. There is a sharing economy piece, which we all know very well. These are Airbnbs and Ubers and the Olas of the world, where they rent out assets. Platform economy sums it up all in terms of how platforms like WhatsApp, Telegram, and many more are today enabling or facilitating or creating opportunities, including Facebook and Insta. People are making themselves celebrity on Instagram today just because of the way the platform has been set up and made it easier for anyone to be an overnight superstar. Uh, Peer-to-peer economy, one where individuals directly transact business or cooperate in production with each other or little to no intermediation by third parties. And lastly, crowd economy. We've seen a lot of this. A classic example of an offline model would be if you all have had Lijjat Papad. It's one classic example of that where we try to bring in all people together for one common goal, and then that's Mahila Graha Udyog Limited. Um, what are the kind of workers that we see, right? We have full-time workers, people who work for organizations or employees, as we all know. We have freelancers. These could be anyone who could probably come in to do a training, probably do your monthly payrolls, and several others. You could have gig workers who could probably do anything and everything, probably on a transactional basis. They are committed to more than one businesses at one point of time. You have solopreneurs who could be part of an ecosystem. They specialize in one domain of expertise and sell their services to the organizations, typically digital marketing experts, growth hackers, or even probably graphic designers and all of that. Entrepreneurs, people who employ people to be able to get the work done. So these are the kind of workers that we are seeing today as part of the gig ecosystem or an organizational ecosystem. Um, and and we all need to be completely aware of how does the work get done. The work today gets done, I mean, look deeper into any expertise, or for example any function. If you look at an HR function, and if you take a look at recruitment as a sub function, you would see facets of or aspects of the role being broken down into multiple chunks that are then given to either a full timer or a freelancer or a gig worker or a solopreneur, and even add an last element to it, which is outsourcing as well. So I think these are the kind of workers that we're already aware of. Now we need to really look at what do we need to do to be able to make the best use of this ecosystem.
There is a
And
question,
last, yes.
Gopal, there's a question from Shankar.
Mhm.
Gig economy versus outsourcing. Is there a significant difference?
There is a big difference, in fact, because I would say outsourcing is done at a massive scale, at a functional level. You outsource probably a chunk of the function to a group of people that you have you have it in a controlled environment. Whereas gig economy is more done at a tactical or a transactional level. You can crowdsource a particular aspect of the role to a set of people. It could be one or it could be 100. A classic example could be recruitment process outsourcing, which then further gets outsourced to giggers. So people need not have real technical expertise to be able to make a call and ask the person if he or she is interested for this job or schedule an interview. Uh, and these are kind of things that can be done easily by anyone, right? But at the end of the day, outsourcing totally thrives on a totally different performance metrics. Gig works on a totally different performance metrics as well.
So, if I may take
Hope
an
that
example
helps.
based on my
Yeah.
understanding, in e-learning industry,
Mhm.
outsourcing would be giving a end-to-end project. of
Correct.
developing a communication skills workshop or a learning module to one company which
Yeah.
is into e-learning based
Correct. Correct.
product development. They in turn give certain sections of that to gig workers as a task,
Correct.
or develop these many screens. I have the content here. Can you put it into a set of screens which can be rendered for the final product? And that's
Correct.
how the work gets done.
Correct. Correct. So wonderfully explained, Bhaskar. I think if you look at a couple of elements of that e-learning itself, the content creation could be done by a specific gig worker. So the outsourced agency could further outsource the content development to a gig worker, or a story building aspect to a gig worker, or a graphic design aspect to a gig worker, and several of those. So it is basically uh, breaking the work down into a structure that can be easily given to a specific expert in that domain to be able to do a better job. Because when it comes to an outsourcing, it is still a massive work product that we are talking about. But when it comes to gig working, it is a micro level task, if that
Gopal,
can
why I'm
be explained.
smiling, Shankar is provoking us further. He's saying, so non-core items are part of gig economy.
Not at all. That's what I explained, right? Content is not non core.
Yeah.
Content is extremely important element. I mean, without content, nothing would exist. I mean, for example, this deck that we are seeing today, I did this all by myself. It's a content, and it's a strategy in its own. Today we are in a stage where this entire content building can be crowdsourced to someone. You just give them the aspects of what you need to see as an end product, and they'll be able to do a phenomenal job of that. So it's not a transactional aspect alone. It could be transactional as well, but it could be anything which is driven by a skill. Content is a skill, for that matter. Storytelling is a skill, graphic design is a skill, recruitment, within recruitment sourcing is a skill, and so on. We can And that's what makes gig economy very interesting, because it's not just for a particular set of people. It is for everybody. Everybody has a role to play in it, either as a work giver or a work taker or a subscriber, or someone who's giving the work as well. And anyone, I mean, it could you could have people who are freshers in the business, or even CHROs or CXOs on demand, part of this ecosystem. So I have known, and I have worked with, in fact, a lot of people who are CXOs on demand. They come and do this project, and they charge a particular fee for that entire duration of the project, and get the work done and move on. And that's the kind of ecosystem that we're talking about.
Yeah. So four words come to my mind, Gopal. One is on demand.
Hmm.
Second is contract,
Hmm.
time, task. So when
Yes.
all of these elements are present, I think we are witnessing a gig. There is one more
Yes.
question from Sunil for you.
Sure.
Across
Sure.
these six worker type categories, would you have some idea on distribution, percentages by way of, say, number of people, payouts, etc.?
So the bulk, which is what is reflection of the organizational structure today, is full timers, right? I mean, and we'll talk a little bit more on that towards the end of this conversation, as well as to what we need to do to be able to make best use of the other five or six. But full timers take the maximum chunk of any organizational workforce, followed by freelancers, gig workers in different proportions. Each organization, depending on whichever industry that they are part of, would have a different org mix. If you ask an Ola or an Uber, they would have bulk of the organizational workforce as gig workers, probably. But if you ask probably a consulting organization, it will be the other way around.
Yeah. Also,
Does
from
that answer
industry
the question?
to industry,
Yeah.
sector to sector, it may vary, right?
Yes.
Logistics
Yes.
and transportation, it could be having huge
Thrive on
potential.
gig workers. Yep.
And I was reading
Absolutely.
this recent report released by BCG.
Hmm.
Phenomenal work they have done in terms of capturing the potential of gig economy. Those who are
Yeah.
online, please search. on YouTube, you have a video which explains how gig economy could benefit India, a developing country. All developed
Absolutely.
countries may not benefit too much from this. As a young in population, in age, and in terms of development stage, I think we are better poised to
Yeah.
exploit this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the one of the other arguments that always gets made is one, would this work in India because of the aspirational quotient of people? Um, two, isn't this in isn't this being done currently in a way which is exploitative? The answer to both of that is the answer to both of that, in fact, is no. Um, in India, I think the aspiration quotient of individuals will drive a lot of roles towards gig. It may not be visible now, but I'm sure in the next 2 to 3 years we will see a very big shift happening towards that. Secondly, the government also has done quite a few things for the gig workers, especially by bringing the terms gig workers, platform workers, all in the Social Security Code, in the 2020 Social Security Code. It's a matter of time that it gets passed and probably made. I mean, it's passed already. It's in the works to get rolled out. Once that happens, I think you will see a lot of shift around how the treatment of gig workers is done. It may seem that it is exploitative and it's purely driven by what we hear in media, one or two instances of that. But I can recall a conversation that I had with one of the persons who came to do a haircut, and I asked him, okay, so curiosity, so how does it feel? And he was someone from Northeast, and I was asking him, how does it feel to be doing this work for this company? And he said, I feel I made the right decision by doing this, because as someone I was doing it on my own, I wasn't earning what I'm earning today. Today, I think I'm given guaranteed business by this company to do X number of jobs a day. Even during lockdown, they took care of us. They engaged with us to make sure that we upskill ourselves into various new things. And that just kind of reassured the fact that there is a lot that's happening, that, I mean, great things happening that we don't even get to see
Yeah,
on a day in day out basis. So I think it's just going to continue to grow, and make lives better for a lot of such people who are looking for platform economy to be able to make their living.
true. And Sunil has a follow-up question, Gopal. I think you have answered a bit in the instance that you shared.
Sure.
He's saying, was he was thinking of what is this distribution before and after COVID? Is there any
I
insight from?
would No, it would be a little too premature to look at pre and post COVID because we haven't one completed the COVID cycle. I think it's going to be an evolving aspect, because it also is driven on the unemployment. It's also driven on the sectors that get impacted, and how they respond to it. So if you really, I mean, I think we'll have to wait it out, unless, I think NASCOM did some studies in the past. World Economic Forum also have done some studies in the past, but they are at a very global level. In NASCOM, of course, was at an India level, but it will be an interesting one for us to really look deeper into, if that makes any sense for us. In the interest of time, I'm
Fine.
going to move
We'll
on
move
to
on.
the next slide. Yeah. So I guess I answered this question, or this already, in terms of what gig economy is. But the fundamental aspect, I would say, for gig economy is that the work gets done on a platform typically, and that's what qualifies it to be a gig work. And there are no fixed a schedule. I mean, there are fixed schedules for people to get their work done, but they're not like as continuous, like an employment where you are given a job which is perpetual. Here you are given a job which is time bound, a scope that is predefined. The rate cards are pre-negotiated, and it also allows individuals to do multiple gigs at a time, as long as there is no conflict of interest situation, where I think there is no expectation of an individual to work 9 to 5 necessarily on 5 days a week. It's more of where the work demands you to be working more, you're available, and where there is very little work, you can probably take your day off or probably work for someone else as well. So that's what the platform economy has really um, facilitated a growth of this scale in various work that we already spoke about. So, who is a gig worker? Again, we spoke about this in our earlier slides. Typically, people who are self-employed, they may engage with more than one employer or an organization, and again, there is no restriction in terms of the time that they would do. So, what are the pros of being a gig worker? One, you get freedom and autonomy. You can choose how much to work, how much not to work. You have complete control. You're your own boss, basically, to be able to get the work done. You have the flexibility in terms of choosing the times that you would work, choosing the location that you work out of, choosing your own clients. You have a work-life balance, and I know it's a debatable topic for a lot of people at this point of time, given how remote working is panning out in country like India. But if you really manage it well, it's all self-management that's needed to be done well. You will still be able to find a great work-life balance because you are a gig worker. We spoke about work from anywhere. A lot of people can find time to focus on their health and wellness, or even caregiving responsibilities that they may have, which predominantly triggers a lot of people to move towards gig working as well, especially women. And I think there are a lot of platforms that are there today, and we'll talk about platforms in just a bit, that help women to come back to workforce and be engaged with work on gig for various organizations as well. And of course, you get to decide your income. It's all goal driven, mind you. It's not employment driven, so it requires a very different level of mindset for people to adopt to gig economy. Don't look at gig more as an employment option. It's more an, I would say, solopreneurship or an entrepreneurship venture where you're trying to monetize the skills that you have, and are still able to find the right balance for yourself in whatever way you can. And I think that's how I would approach this. Now, the perceived, or even in many cases, real challenges that we all see with regards to gig economy is inconsistency. We don't have a continuous stream of income. We don't have continuous stream of opportunities. We need to go and sell our services, our whatever we are good at, across various platforms to be able to get the work done. And that's not very cool for a lot of people. They're not comfortable with selling. They don't resonate themselves to be someone who could really sell well. But again, there are a lot of platforms that are available. And a classic example I can give you is Facebook. I think the amount of change that Facebook is, and Google Ads for that matter, has done is, I mean, I would say commendable, because they have really made some really fantastic entrepreneurs in the last 12 to 18 months. I'm not endorsing them, by the way, please don't take me wrong, but I'm just giving you an example of what platforms can do to be able to ensure that you're getting the right quantity of work on a timely basis. Not enough pay seems to be one of the concerns, but again, don't equate this with your regular salaried income. In my view, it's all you who decides what you want to get paid and work backwards to be able to achieve that goal. So if you think you have a goal of 1 crore a year, you will need to then define what product will you sell, what niche services will you sell to be able to make that money at what price point. So I think that's a very different mindset that we need to adopt to and adapt to. Benefits remains one of the biggest challenges. The new social security code is trying to address it by making provident fund and gratuity more mandatory for gig workers. But again, this will only apply for someone who is a regular gig worker through platforms. Typically, your blue collar jobs, not white collar jobs, people, my guidance or my advice always would be to insure yourself well, through whatever insurance packages that you get, be it health for sure, and even otherwise. Save your money wisely so that you don't really need to worry about benefits as such. And there are a lot of financial uh, management experts today who can get really good at give really good advice to you to be able to do that. Taxes. When you're an employee, your taxes are pretty much taken care of by the employer through Form 16s. But when it comes to being an gig worker, that could go a little haywire. Hire a chartered accountant to be able to manage that well for you. And there are a lot of them, of course, available to be able to do that. Chartered accountants themselves understand this business well because their work is very similar to what the gig working is all about. They work cyclically through. I mean, of course, I'm talking about the practicing chartered accountants, not chartered accountants who are employees of organizations. Technology. Not everyone is tech savvy, unfortunately, and this is time and again proven in the last 12 to 15 months, where the technology, as much as is great, has not gotten into our remote areas like towns and villages. You could have a laptop or a desktop issue. You could have an internet issue, power issue, or you just don't know how to work with a PowerPoint or a Word or an Excel, or even have a good communication tool or a phone. And that's a divide that we really need to work towards building. And I'm hopeful people listening into this uh, conversation today are able to create some business opportunities for themselves out of this, and are able to work to bridge that gap. Very important in times like these is to bridge the digital divide that exists. Competition with full timers. There is always going to be a competition with full timers or even gig workers, and it's going to be an extremely competitive environment to be able to pitch your services at a price point that is decent enough for you to get work done. But again, you will be able to master this with expertise, experience, and of course tapping into the right ecosystem of mentors and coaches to be able to help you out in this area. Lastly, well-being. While there is a pro on that in the earlier slide that you saw, well-being at times can also be a factor of you burning out because you're trying to put in a lot more effort to be able to survive and thrive. But yeah, I think that's a conscious decision one needs to take, as to say, how much should I be able to do? Um, when should I say no? And when is it good for me to say I'm not going to go further than this? It's a tough one. It doesn't come naturally to a lot of people, but over a time, you would be able to overcome that as well. Now, mindset, as I spoke about, is an extremely important one. We all need to really think about how do we adapt to this, and this is no longer only for gig workers. Just I'm just calling that out because we all need this mindset even as employees, because that's the world that we are living in. So reprise of all negative thoughts, right? I mean, I think we're going through a lot of negative thoughts being bombarded. So avoid them. Be mindful, be accepting, accept things as they come. Be your own boss. In a virtual world, I think we have not been able to get opportunities to be meeting people in person and have our conversations the way we would have wanted to. Sitting in working from home gives you an isolated space to work, but at the end of the day, you need to really do your bit to be able to be your own boss and manage yourself well. Self management is an extremely important aspect. Problem solving with yourself. You will not have opportunities to kind of go and ask people face to face of, can I get this done? Like, I mean, if you were in office, you could just walk up to this person and get the work done. But otherwise, now today, you have to wait to schedule a call on Zoom or a Team or a Meet to be able to get the work done. So that puts additional pressure on us to be able to do our due diligence better, to be able to get the work done. Patience, very important. Virtual world, It's we can't see each other. I can't see who I am speaking to probably 99% of the times, unless I and the other person also has turned on the video. I can't see the body language as much, and it may get to us in a way that we find ourselves in a situation where we get impatient, anxious. uh, Very important to practice mindfulness, thoughtfulness, to be able to calm our nerves. Create a plan of action and timeline and live up to that. Very important on building this mindset as well. Set priorities and be productive. Make a business plan and follow. A lot of people get into gig working without a business plan. uh, Most often it is an outcome of them not being prepared but being forced into gig working. Even if that is the case, take a step back. There are tools available today for you to create business plans online. Just take a good short course on that. I mean, every platform player, Google, Facebook, are all ready to help you with free learnings on how to do all of these. YouTube is a fantastic platform to learn many things at probably no cost. Make the best use of that. Create a business plan. Ask yourself, who are you selling to? What are you going to sell? Why are you selling? At what price point? What resources do you have, and how much do you need to stretch to be able to do your job well? I think that's what I'm sharing. Stay focused on your goal. Create goal plans. You need to have, as I said, if your goal plan is to make 1 crore a year, I think you need to really work on putting together how would you reach to that by end of this year. So be committed no matter what. Ensure ongoing communication, be it with your clients, be it with your customers, be it with your employees, be it with your family, most importantly, and be it to your mentor circle as well, because you need energies to be able to do your job well. Without communication, you will not be able to tap into the energies that you need access to, and it will make you feel lonely and probably even at times hopeless. So let's not do that. And all of this, mind you, is the so-called negative effects at times of working virtually as well. But we can all solve for this together. Create disruptions. Don't wait for it. It's a disrupting world. Will continue to be disruptive. Can you be that person who can predict what it will mean for you and do something about it? Take the first step. Push your own personal boundaries. And when I say push your own personal boundaries, not with an intent to burn you out, but if there is a comfort zone that you're are part of and are living in, can you do something to come out of that? No longer can I say, you know what, I can't do these webinars, or I can't do XYZ thing, I can't do whatever, right? Can I learn to do it is a question that you need to really ask yourself. And that's what I mean when I say push your personal boundaries. What got you here won't get you there. If you have been a successful person thus far, remember, as a gig worker, it's a new business every day. Every morning you have to wake up and ask yourself, okay, who am I going to sell my services to today? Right? Learn, relearn, learn, unlearn, and relearn. You may have 20 years or 30 years of experience. Is that going to be relevant in the future? We'll need to ask yourselves and ask your customers whether they find your experience relevant. If they don't find, be open to unlearn and relearn the new skills, new tricks of the trade. Sorry about that. Understand the best practices versus best principles. Now, a lot of people have thought that, let's get into this training, let's do this, let's do that. Why? Because other person is doing it. May not be relevant for you. You need to ask yourself, what are the best principles? Why should I do this? What will I do that will help me get better outcomes? um, don't look for one size fits all kind of solutions. And lastly, in the VUCA world, VUCA realities, doing nothing is no longer an option. So, unfortunately, if you have been in a situation where you have lost your job or are stuck in your career, find ways to be able to do something different, do something more disruptive, but do something. I think that's what I'm trying to share as well.
It's a wonderful. set of principles and mindset pointers, Gopal. In fact, there's someone who has joined in a place near London who has asked this question, Raghav. What are the
Sure.
pitfalls to avoid at the beginning? I think you have answered many of those in the previous
Yeah.
slide.
Yeah.
We'll keep talking. And Raghav, please do share if some of these are resonating with you. And if you have any specific question, please do share that in the window. Thank you.
Perfect. So, for all our leaders on the call who are trying to understand if this is the right thing for us to do for our organization, well, guess what? We are all already doing it in some form or the other. How did this all start? If you really look at uh, 15 years or 20 years ago, this all started. I mean, if I were to quickly take my example of my parents, they started in a brick and mortar setup. They were working on site, required. The work was need based typically. There was very low flexibility. I mean, I don't think they could ever imagine sitting at home and working for an entire year, like we have been fortunate enough to do. But I think once I mean, be it 80s, 90s, 2000, we started seeing a lot of shift. First with the 1992 opening up our doors to the world economy by devaluing the rupee, and then the Y2K, and then 2008 crisis, and then 2016, and now 2020. Each disruption has created opportunities for a different mix of people to come and be part of the workforce ecosystem. Freelancing, LIC agents, you might have heard, photographers, wedding planners, all of those. Where did they come from? They were all part of an employment ecosystem, changed for various reasons, and gotten into doing something on their own. And today, with the support of platforms that we have, and today we have platforms for everything for that matter. Uh, the ability for someone to sit and work and do business with someone sitting across a different continent is very easy, and it's higher flexibility, higher comfort, and it's predominantly skill based. So no longer are we in the need based environment, we are in a skill based environment. We have a higher flexibility and a comfort. So possibility of remote working is at its peak, and it also allows us to look at different mix of people who could come and be part of our ecosystem. Now, this is already happening is what I wanted to share. Now, how do we really set ourselves towards adapting to gig economy or a gig ecosystem? Simple. Ask yourself if it's a strategic role, long term need, or a non strategic role where the skill is unique and scarce. The best bet still remains to own the resource or hire this individual, but not necessarily hire as a full timer. You could probably get into a joint venture or an outsourcing agency model as well. But where the skills are commonly available and you have access to best quality talent sitting across anywhere in the world, including your partner ecosystem of contractors, you could probably look at renting them as a gig worker, or you can probably even look at renting it out to a contracting agency for the work to be done. Classic example could be a recruitment process outsourcing, or uh, the captive centers that we have seen grow in the last several years. This more is from an headquarters perspective, if you were to really look at that. From GCC perspective or a captive center perspective, it could be outsourcing it further to any other organization. So gig is already part of this. Now the question that you really need to ask yourself is, what makes the best sense to hire gig, in what format? And let's see what's the answer to that. There are different kind of work that we do, and I think Bhaskar touched upon retainers and cooperation agreements in the earlier conversation as well. But if the work is going to be short as well as expert guidance driven, you'd probably go for an advisory kind of work. But if it's going to be a fixed focus on scope, defined start and end with a budget, might as well go for a consultancy who does the work well. Classic example is digital marketing firms. They will know what does it need to build an extremely great value proposition from an employer branding standpoint. Gig could be anyone who is visiting experts. When I say visiting virtually, to be able to get the work done for a specific project or an event for a defined period and then probably leave. Retainers, and a lot of gigs eventually become retainers because of the great work that they do. People typically end up re-engaging with gig workers as well, which then gives them a longer term horizon for staying true to a particular organization, or loyal to a particular organization, because they continuously get more work through them. Cooperation agreement could be between two or more teams or organizations to share costs and benefits in addressing common opportunity, problem, or initiative. So this is a agile organizational framework that we all can devise and make sense for ourselves based on what exists in terms of workforce categories today.
I
And
think the
lastly,
keyword is agility,
yes,
what you
yes,
mentioned.
keyword absolutely is agility. I think
And as a leader, there are a lot of areas where we need to be agile in thinking, in the way the systems, the policies, tax implications. I think that's the key for anyone who is willing to embrace this change and be an early adopter.
absolutely be an early adopter and be an informed adopter as well. A lot of times we try to give this work off to someone else to be able to decide for us, and we only execute. This requires us to be completely involved and make the right decisions for the organization as well as in the interest of people as well. So few aspects on platforms. Upwork by far is the largest platform that gives freelancing work, and followed by Fiverr, which is more into the design and creative space of gig working. There are a lot of other platform players that we have in India, like Flexing IT, Think Noble House, or Noble House as they are known as, Outsized, FlexiBees. They are all specialized in their own respective areas. Like Noble House started off more as someone who were into HR consulting, and they continue to specialize in that area. So if people are driven by, I mean, they are experts in HR, probably the best place to go and find consulting opportunities would be Think Noble House. Similarly, if you're a graphic designer, if you're a storyteller, if you're a book content writer, Fiverr could be a great place to start your career there. For all general roles across all skills levels, experiences, Flexing It could be a great place to look at. FlexiBees is one of the platforms that specializes in providing opportunities for women. So anyone listening into this who want to restart their career or re-gig their career, as we would want to call, may want to uh, look up at FlexiBees and find opportunities. Probably most importantly, the reason why I'm bringing all of this is it's important for all of us, people seeking roles, opportunities, to create profile on these platforms. It's only once we have created profiles will we be able to get triggers on what kind of opportunities that exist, and then apply for it and make sense out of it. So I think it's very important that we just don't rely on the largest platforms that provide opportunities. Those are all designed to provide full-time opportunities. These are signups that you need to do to be able to find the right role for yourself. So with that, I
Uh, Gopal, there
would
is a
end.
friend of mine,
Yes,
GR
yes,
Reddy, who's been in this space for quite some time. He's been a HR influencer in this
sure.
space, and he says they have been helping many international organizations assessing gig talent from India.
Wonderful,
We are more helping
wonderful.
as a PEO or EOR for such needs. We see great growth happening in this area with pandemic throwing up opportunities for telecommuting and remote work. I'm sure GR,
Absolutely, very
this
true.
is also true for non-metros as well, right? Tier two, tier three cities
Absolutely,
where the talent is flowing, and
absolutely,
also the reverse migration, all these that we talk about, and hyper local is a solution. Many of them
absolutely.
want jobs closer to their home, uh, or even gigs closer to their home, so that they have a balance.
Absolutely. Very well said. So I think that brings an end to the presentation. I'm happy to take more questions.
That's really nice. Thanks, Gopal. Is my voice loud and clear, audience? Can you
Yes.
put it
Yes,
on
it
the chat
is.
window? I think on YouTube, some of them mentioned that it's low. I have made some changes at my end. Hope this works. I have a lot of questions, Gopal, from our Google form. I'm just going to share some of them on the screen. You know, funny, right?
Yes.
Um, he wished to understand's view on future of hiring departments within organization. If gig workers increase and work is distributed through tech platform, how does that work?
So I think we need to really look at this question in a very holistic manner. At no point of time am I suggesting that we will only hire gig workers. At no point of time am I suggesting that there will be no work for full timers. So there is enough and more work for everyone to do in this space. What will happen is, and this is true for even full time hiring, is platforms will drive a lot of work in an automated manner, which helps us make the lives easier for ourselves. So I think that is what will make the uh, recruitment teams. I mean, very importantly, they have to try and adapt to the technology to be able to um, uh, see through the change, if I were to say.
And perhaps the recruitment team should upskill or reskill themselves to
Yes,
search for talent through these
correct.
platforms. And
Yes,
platforms also
absolutely,
give a lot of security to and transparency to the gig workers, right? They get payments
absolutely,
on time. At least they don't need to chase the customer for in honoring their invoices.
correct, correct.
That
True,
is very true for a freelancer or a consultant or someone who is independent.
true.
Um, and
One of the
as you
biggest pain
rightly
points is
mentioned
that not
earlier,
getting paid. Yeah,
yes. So as you rightly mentioned earlier, it's not just the blue collar workers who are getting benefited out of gig. Even the mid level and senior level executives are, getting into the work. So the next
yeah.
question is on that. Is it advisable for a mid career professional to branch off as an independent consultant? Typically, it was seen as a right of someone with considerable experience.
All boils down to two questions that you need to ask yourself. Do you have enough with you to be able to sustain the next few months as you set up your own gig career? Or, as I said, it's more an entrepreneurial mindset that you need to build. Uh, and are you willing to be able to take that risk, calculated risk? And secondly, do you have the right skills to be able to monetize it for yourself? I mean, if you're able to answer these questions, the answer is why not?
True. And to earlier discussion, Gopal GR agrees that it is in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, GR, for that. So I'm moving on to further more questions. Some of them are very broad, generic questions. Some of them are very specific to their requirement. This one is very specific. How to map skills as per market demand and how do we market them? This has come out frequently. How do I market myself in this scenario?
So marketing is not a problem, to be honest. We have tremendous skills available to help you market well, position yourself better. But you could do it yourself as well through platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, being able to sell your services better. Now, what skills is something is a factor of what experiences you carry, as well as where you want to be, and what is the gap that you need to bridge. If you're able to look at all three together, you will be able to form a right strategy for it.
Also, on the other aspect, Gopal, I found that people who are learning from others are better off. They
Yes.
try and experiment how to write a better introduction. I was watching a video where a baker tries 5 different ways of introducing his work,
Mm,
and one of them got the gig. The other ones did not work. So trial and error. So the way we market ourselves in these platforms and the places where we send our applications, we should be bold enough to take that risk and try one or the other and see what we are learning from each of these tries.
One really important thing that you just wonderfully said is, are we okay and are we willing to fail? Not saying that um, you're preparing to fail, but I think failures are part of this entire game, and we should be okay to try test, even if it is even if it's a failure in one instance. It's okay for us to try something else. We at times are too hard on ourselves, and we should avoid being too hard on on ourselves, and see what better we can do to move on and do something different if one thing fails, if at all.
Absolutely, very well said. And this next question is something related to what you just mentioned, Gopal. How to be successful in gig economy? And before you answer, may I just share my learning? While
Sure.
I was researching on this topic, I found a lot of research done by INSEAD. I think many of you know INSEAD as a different ways. One is we need to have or cultivate a routine, which Gopal you talked about. From morning till evening, there's a routine that we stick to, and that's going to give us success. Place, we need to know what are the marketplaces where we find a target audience and our potential customers, and we need to be there visible in these places. And third, people, get to know people deeper and have an in-depth conversation rather than, hey, can you be useful to me, uh, would I get a business from you? Try to understand the people, who they are and as they are. That would help you get the connections that you would need. And the last one is purpose. And this again a resource where they're saying, find your purpose in terms of how your skills can be put to use. A baker is useful in a particular gig platform to supply the recipe to audience who are very far off, geographically distributed. However, the same person is more useful in a different format in a hyper local place to send the products, right? Or conduct a cooking class with people around their locality from time to time to pass on this knowledge and also earn a livelihood, and that purpose is something we need to find out. It's not just the money, it's about who we are and how we are doing. And in our discussion, we also touched on two things, Gopal. One is the identity that we carry and the job that
Was
we do.
about to come to
Can
that.
you
Yeah.
say more on that, please?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, as I was reflecting upon what you were just saying, typically, if anyone asks us who you are, we would say, yeah, I work for so and so organization and I'm an HR manager or a finance manager or whatever, right? I mean, I think it could be endless list of titles that we call ourselves, and that becomes our identity. But is that who we really are? And one of the aspects, based on the story that you rightly said, is the potential that we have as individuals is like beyond our imagination. We really need to work towards finding our true calling and work in a manner that allows us to do multiple things, which then doesn't make it I mean, we don't really need to then say that I'm an HR professional. I could be anything, right? Okay, 7 to 8 I am a fitness expert, fitness enthusiast. 8 to 9 I am with family. 10 to 7 I'm with an organization playing a particular role. So we play different roles during the day, and we could probably associate ourselves to that. So I think very importantly, need to ask ourselves, what are we really good at doing, and align ourselves to the strengths that we have, than focusing on the weaknesses alone.
Also, dissociate the failure as personal failure.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
Out of 10 clients I serve, I may not click well with two or three. That doesn't
Yes.
mean I am bad, or my identity is getting a hit. I need to
Yeah.
reinvent quickly, learn from those
Wonderful.
mistakes, and move forward. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
There's one question from GR. Um, he is in a good mood to provoke, as I think. What are the inputs you have, Gopal, for very senior people, and how gig can help them?
So I have had really wonderful conversations with some uh, senior folks who asked me a similar question. Now, if I were to convert them into two or three aspects that people should think about, one, uh, you may have 30 years or 35 years of experience. Ask yourself, how can you monetize it with the skill that you have? I mean, when I say monetize it, don't look at it as a salary, more in terms of how can you monetize it to create a product out of it and sell. Two, as I said, selling is required and very important. People will not really give you um, opportunities based on your past titles alone. Yeah, that's credibility that is already created, legacy already created, but we need to probably find avenues through being part of associations, networks, being willing to help various projects, maybe to start with on a pro bono basis, and then create a new identity that comes with it. And three, and the last one is the biggest one, is again on the identity and the comfort zone aspect of it. We remain glued to what we have done always in our careers, which prohibits us to take the step forward to do something new in our career, and which is
The
where a lot
brand
of
that
people.
we have built for so
Yeah.
many years.
Yes. So we need to
What will
really
people
let
think if
go
I
of
do
that.
this? Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. So we need to let go of that. The more we stay stuck into our legacy, you will never be able to experience something great that is unfolding. So I think be open to change, be willing to take risks, and it's okay to let go of your titles for a moment and re-enter the market with a new zeal.
I think the fourth element, what INSEAD research talks about, is the purpose. We need to
Yes.
find that purpose of being a senior leader, where I can provide that maximum impact and how I
And
can
the
leave a
best,
legacy.
yeah,
Yeah,
and the best
it's not
place to
just
give that impact today is the startup ecosystem, where we are having, I mean, an explosion of startups in India, but a lot of startups are built without clarity in terms of what is it that they want to be doing. And your experience, your collective 25, 30 years of experience will be invaluable for them. How many of us really even consider doing startup mentoring?
yeah.
Very
It
little.
will put them on a right trajectory to become a next unicorn, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
Sunil is also asking, besides FB, Google, LinkedIn, etc., what other suggestions for marketing?
Create your own websites, create your own YouTube channels, um, be on Spotify or Clubhouse, be visible to people who can listen to you on what your thoughts are, views are. A lot of people at times refrain themselves from being on platforms and not express them, but in the virtual world, that has been the only thing that has really helped people cut loose and find more opportunities. I don't think, Bhaskar, you would have done this session. I mean, your session says new normal. I don't think you would have done this session pre-pandemic in this
No,
format. And I
absolutely.
think this is the new identity that we are trying to create for ourselves. And I think a lot of people could take some insights from things like these for themselves as well.
That's right. Thanks, Gopal. And the next question is on the regulation, or any government portal is there for registration. How does one go about? This is more from tax and authorization of doing the activity.
This is in the works, Akshay. Akshay is a good friend of mine, a school friend. So thank you, Akshay, for joining. This is in the question that you're asking is work in progress. I think a lot of work is to be done in this space to regularize, formalize the gig ecosystem. Tax is working on its own path to make it more streamlined, while the employment law and labor would take its own time. And then there is a social security element also, which will come together. So it's an evolution. We will eventually, excuse me, will eventually be there. We'll just have to wait and watch how things unfold.
Yeah, as an early adopter, that's the risk we take. However, we could also shape this, Akshay.
Yes.
Perhaps there are a lot of forums where people talk about what kind of guidelines we may require, and like any other policy, it will be put up for public review, and we could participate. And I have
Yeah.
determined myself to do something in this area, so
Yeah.
we'll
I
look
know
out
a
for
good
it.
yeah, I know a good friend, Sanjay Lakhotia, who in fact runs the Think Noble House that I shared. He has been doing a great job in terms of probably giving guidances around making these regulatory changes. So I think we will have a lot of such people who require to provide inputs, and I think things will change.
Yeah. So all the best, Sunil. Sunil says he has ticked off on the boxes that we mentioned. Now, next to
Thank
Nupur,
you.
she's joining in from Odisha. Whenever we are introducing someone, where do you work? Is the question that we ask. Shouldn't we be asking, what are you working on? Absolutely. And what are
Absolutely.
you
Why
working
not?
on today?
Yeah. Or
Because
now.
all these are on demand, right? So tomorrow it could be different.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely right.
absolutely. Right. And right now I am on a YouTube live with Bhaskar.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
many such questions, Gopal. In fact, this one is very, very specific. How do we decide the rate per hour or per day?
It's not going to be a straightforward answer, unfortunately. A lot of this would be a factor of demand and supply, and your own experiences of what rate works well for you. Um, Simple thing is, if you, let's say, for example, if you're a coach, or let's say you're a digital marketing expert, you may want to go to platforms like Fiverr or Upwork and find out what rates people are charging for such work, and see if you want to position yourself in the same manner, higher, lower, and then come to try and test it. And I think it will not work on the first attempt. It maybe 3 or 4 attempts, then you will find, okay, you could also come up with differential pricing. You'll say, okay, no, I need this client for sure in my kitty, and I'll probably price it lower to get the client. But for the other client, I may charge a premium. So I think those are all that will come out of the experiences that you would have.
Absolutely. And in fact, I was following certain websites where for a client servicing executive or call center executive, the rates range from, say, $20
Hmm,
to 250 to $500 as well. And the kind
absolutely.
of people, what kind of money they make is directly proportionate to the skill level that they are
Yeah,
demonstrating. And
yeah,
once the clients are accustomed to your style, I'm sure they don't mind paying that premium, because the
absolutely.
number of errors are going down, and you're promising a delivery output which no one else can match. I think
Yeah,
that's where we should move towards. It's a trial and error,
yes,
as Gopal mentioned.
yeah.
The next question is, can we do gig work while doing current job?
um, yes and no. Yes, meaning you, like, for example, you're working for an organization, but you have passion in photography or singing, or anything that is not directly in line with what you do for your organization. As long as your organization is okay with you pursuing that hobby and monetize it, should be okay. But anything that is directly in linked with your identity for as an organizational employee uh, may not be advisable. Again, your organizational risk team or HR team or legal team should
Ethics,
be able to give you
ethics
further
team.
guidance. Yeah, ethics team.
So there are two ways to look at it from my experience. I can say one is how it is perceived by your current boss and your
Mm.
colleagues. Are
Yeah.
you dropping whatever you are supposed to do on the job and giving more importance to the gig?
Correct. Correct.
Uh, if that's the perception, may not be the reality, then you are in for trouble.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
going to lose the trust on
Yeah.
the current job that you are in.
Yeah.
The second perspective is the confidentiality and the IP that Gopal you talked about. If your organization is into training and you offer training gig, then it's a conflict of interest, right? Why would a
Correct.
client come to the company where they would be charging more administrative overheads and so on, where you could be charging less? That will be seen as a conflict of interest, and you are cannibalizing the pipeline for the company. And recently, I had a informal interview with one of the large consulting firms, and I asked the same question. Can I continue do some coaching engagements on the side? The person whom I spoke to gave a very good answer. He says, try to pass it on through us. If we find there is a fitment, why don't we do it together and you take the entire credit of referring the client and take the revenue as well. So we will
Mm.
decide on a higher percentage of your take home. I said, wow, that's
Mm.
a good answer, right? And if there is a conflict and we all agree that it's not best interest of the organization, then we would request you to drop it for time being. I thought it's a
Absolutely.
very good, honest answer.
Yep. Yep.
The next one is a person needs an expertise in a particular field to offer his or her service to the client.
That's what we spoke about, right? I mean, expertise also is in different proficiency levels. So you could be at a expertise level 1, 2, 3, 4, and each will have a customer base for doing this. So, for example, today I'm on a call. I mean, I'm on a session with Bhaskar on YouTube. But if I were to think about doing a TEDx or TED Talk, requires a different level of expertise and proficiency. Would I be able to do that today? I don't know if I were to really get to that stage. But as I said, you need to really ask yourself what expertise is required for you to do this job, and do you have the proficiency for being able to do that job well? If the answer to that is yes, why not?
True. The next question is, with the increasing trend towards gig economy, would loyalty to organization be a thing of the past? Will it lead to a change in labor regulation? Very deep question.
I don't think I'm a story. I mean, fortune teller. um, but I think it all depends on what people want, um, and it's everything is driven by how our behaviors are evolving as well as individuals. Our consumption patterns are shifting. The way we shop today, the way we buy today, the way we eat today, the kind of movies we watch, the kind of music we listen to, the kind of cars we buy, everything is very different than how it used to be 20, 30 years ago, or when our parents did whatever they did. So the change is constant and it will continue to evolve. We need to really not judge the change to say that, oh no, is it good or is it bad? It will always look different than what it was 30 years ago. It will always look different when you talk to to your parents or your elderly people at home about these. Like, I mean, even when I talk to my mom's spent 33, 37 years in Central Railways. My dad was in an organization for 42 years. When I was making my second or third role change, they were like, don't you have to settle? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's why not? I mean, I would want to experience
When will
different
you
things.
settle down, Gopal?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what happens, right? But the thing is, we in our generation today value experiences and exposure. And I don't think there is anything wrong with that. And this will also drive a different level of legal regulation change that will probably allow certain thing to happen in a specific moderation, which is what laws and reforms are driven or written for. So we'll have to wait and watch for things to evolve. And I think at least that is the indication that we get on based on what our millennials and the next generation people want from employers.
Yeah. So the last two plus decades of my corporate experience, only once I was qualified for gratuity. So you qualify only if you spend 5 years in one organization, as you all know,
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
sure large population would not have even experienced gratuity in their yeah. Regulations are definitely changing. And when I went to Jamshedpur for my studies, I found uh, 5G, 4G, these are fourth generation employee of the same company. I'm talking about Tata Group,
yeah.
right?
True, 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 true.
They are very proud of it and they show it on the sleeve. That generation is very different. And there's
Yeah,
no hard and fast rule that the fifth generation would also follow suit. They may
yeah,
have a different aspiration, right?
yeah.
So we are just closing, soon. But I have few more questions which I think would be interesting for us to check it. So I'll just pick up three questions which are somewhat related, Gopal. Then you can respond to it. How big is this market?
Mhm.
What are the buyers' view? How is it changing post-COVID with increasing number of organizations going hybrid? How to approach corporates for services? This is again the marketing question.
Mm.
How stable is this economy post COVID? It's an unregulated market, hence can result in misuse of non-payments. Do guide how to stem that risk. We spoke about that briefly.
Yeah,
How does one tap into gig economy? Yeah, so I think these are the related questions. Over to you.
yeah. So, how to tap into gig economy is to be part of the right platforms. We spoke about platforms in my earlier slides. Take a look at that. You may want to revisit that when this video reruns for more insights into it. The world of COVID has, or the pandemic called COVID has impacted work in very different manner. um, we are now looking at work being broken down into smaller chunks and given to different kind of people for better efficiency as well as better output and a better price point. And I think it will continue to evolve as more and more platforms come into picture. Our We will continue to change our consumption patterns as employers, organizations as well, and hire people with the right skills for the right role. And if you think about how this will impact, it is just going to continue to grow. I would not have a percentage in mind about how much percentage of workforce will be hybrid or gig workforce, but I'm guessing it will be anywhere between 5 to 10 to 20% in the next 5 to 10 years. Again, it will not be organization driven. It will be driven by the market forces. So if you only get people who are ready to work on gig, organizations will have to adopt to that as well. If you get organizations willing to give work only to a gig worker, the people aspirations have to align with that as well. So it will be a demand and supply driven model. We'll have to wait for it to continue to evolve, is what my response to that will be. And COVID has definitely played a huge role in shifting the shifting it towards hiring more people on gig. Did I
In fact,
answer?
Gopal, BCG report says 90 million jobs at the least is the opportunity pie. And
Absolutely.
they have identified 5 to 8 sectors or industries where all this would happen, including retail, including manufacturing, logistics, transportation, healthcare, and so on. And even a
It's already
lot
happening.
of
Yeah.
technology disruptions are happening to bring work in a smaller chunk, uh,
Yes.
irrespective of where you are in the pyramid. Entry level, a student, in fact, in many of the economies, it was found that students take advantage of the gig work. They
Yeah.
just take the second half of the day, go to a location, uh, take the packet of work that they have to do in the next 3 hours, 4 hours, and then get paid and earn while you learn is something made possible, which Apprenticeship Act is talking about. And perhaps
Correct.
the platforms would add value to the erstwhile Apprenticeship Act where less visibility is available on the chunk of work. And I'm also thinking, Gopal, the medium and small scale industries who have or lack the power of recruitment,
Hmm.
like the large scale and mid size companies have their own HR department, or Naukri.com and so on. They would also benefit from such platforms.
Absolutely.
If I'm seeking a welder and I'm run a very small shop, all I have to do is download an app and put out an ad saying, hey, I can pay 500 rupees to 10,000 rupees depending on the kind of welding. You upload your credentials on the app. I will see. If I like it, then I'll call you for a face-to-face meeting. Once we like the work, I'll keep on telling you, in a week I have these many slots. You come, you do, and or I'll send you to a client place where you can do, and I'll pay you online. So all of these are potential possibilities as I see it.
Yeah. I mean, I know of a person who, in fact, designed a platform for people who are into stitching business. So he compiled a list of all people who are good with stitching as a skill and gave it to various organizations as platform workers for stitching your shirt and many other things. In fact, they have designed that platform as well. I'm not getting that name. I'll post it on the Google later on. But it's an interesting thing how probably we would continue to see this evolve.
In China, around 15% of the workforce is in gig mode. And we know the
Interesting.
kind of flooding they are doing with in many markets with their products. That's possible because of decoupling, de-skilling the larger portion of work, and no one knows what component comes from where. Only the person who's putting it together knows, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Interesting.
Madan
I'm
has a
sure.
very
I'm sure.
interesting question. I'm not familiar with Rajasthan's labor law.
Mm, it will be too specific for me to comment. So would
If you
uh,
can add some more pointers here, Madan, maybe it could help us.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And one other question, which is my favorite, because I've been following this subject of women falling out of workforce, or reducing participation of women in the workforce. What kind of skill jobs women can seek in India for part time to work, and even full time?
Um, the challenge with the way careers are managed for, especially for women, and slightly unfortunate is a lot of it is dependent on the life events.
Yes.
And it also has an impact on the stream that they would continue to focus on and choose. If they're a trailing spouse, it also impacts the expertise that will continue to change every 3 to 5 years whenever the spouse moves from one place to another, and not necessarily you will be able to find the same expertise or job. Now, one really need to ask herself uh, on what is it that they know and that can be monetized, and what are the avenues that are available to be able to do that. I can give you an example of my wife, who has around 11 years of decorated career in a corporate environment, with multiple breaks in her career due to maternity and all that. But she is a trained musician, trained Carnatic vocalist. So she started teaching music over the weekends in 2014, and now that's become a fully blown uh, gig for her. So today she runs 5 batches a day, Monday to Sunday to Thursday, and I think that becomes a way that she engages with her passion as well as monetizes it. You really need to ask yourself that question on one, what are your skills? Can that be monetized? If yes, where, which platform? For teachers, there are platforms like Teacher On. I spoke about FlexiBees. There could be many others. All you need to do is search the right strings and you will be able to find the answer to it.
And also help people around you if they are
Yes.
unable to bridge the gap, or find a source, or find a place for them to do it. So with this one last question, Gopal, I think we can call it a close.
Sure.
And this
Sure.
question, the second part of the question, I found it very interesting. First one is about number of people working as gig, and how do we track that? I don't know, there's no platform for that, right? Is there a
In
platform?
India, no, I don't think there
These
is.
are guesstimates, I think.
Maybe the tax department does know.
Yeah,
We don't
perhaps.
know that though.
So that's another reform that could come.
Yeah,
How do
it
we,
could. It could.
even farm labor and industrial labor or construction labor? I think there is a new system that's coming up to check how many of them are migrants and how many of
Mm,
them move from what source to what destination. That's a huge, humongous exercise through single unified platform. I keep my fingers crossed it should become successful. At least we'll get an idea of what are we dealing with as a
yeah.
population, right? The second part is very interesting for me because if someone wants to move towards gig economy because he or she wants no boss over him or her, that's not the reason to move to gig. You cannot avoid boss in any form of work. Your client becomes your boss, right? When you
Yes.
move to gig. Um, yeah. Well,
So you
what is your thought?
so you want single boss, you want multiple bosses? That's a question that you need to ask yourself. I don't think we can
Absolutely.
escape that aspect of I don't want to work for someone, and that should never be a driver for someone to transition into a gig work pattern. I think once, if you're sure about what you want to do, it honestly doesn't even matter whether it's a full-time job or a gig job, as long as you're able to do your best for all the clients that you work with. I think that's a fair assumption that you need to
True.
make.
And Ankita is asking a very pertinent question. Can we target a particular company or a set of corporates through the gig platform?
It depends on the platforms that you're part of, Ankita. The certain platforms are aggregators, so they will not allow you to, and not because they don't want to. I think that's the design of how the ecosystem works, where you're only given work in a particular organization to begin with. It could happen, but the decision of routing your expertise to a particular organization still lies based on an AI ML driven platform, based on what skills, what price point, and all of that. Imagine yourself for just a moment, uh, like if you were to think about an Uber. Do you have control on who comes and picks you up and takes you from point A to point B? The answer is no. uh, Even after, once you have gotten dropped off, the driver may say, next time when you need, call me directly, I'll come and pick you up. You would still want to avoid that hassle of calling him,
For
because you will
security
have to pay
reasons.
him cash, and you will security reason and all of that. Whereas when you're going through platform, it makes it all easy without any hassle. So I think a lot of that is driven by the platforms. We may not have that much control, but it could be different. I mean, I think there might be some evolution that happens in platforms also.
Or your skill is so niche that you are preferred by the
Yeah,
corporate that
yeah,
you want to work with.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. That, it can happen the other way around, where the corporates can say that because I have worked with this person, I want the same person to come and do the same project again. So that could happen, but not the other way around.
And the algorithm, as Gopal, you mentioned, would work in a way that it surfaces a profile based on previous client feedback and also the
Absolutely.
kind of work.
Yeah,
So many parameters could go in.
yeah.
So I was once very smitten by the entrepreneurial bug. Uh, Along with few friends, we launched a app. I think it was way ahead of time. It
Mm,
was called CoAtom. It was to bring coach and coachee together on a single platform. It'll be a escrow kind of arrangement where the
mm,
client would pay to the platform and
mm,
experiment with coach A, B, C, and so on. And
mm,
whenever they settle on, the sessions would continue.
mm,
Once the session is over, payment will be released to the coach. So it's more
mm,
of a escrow kind of a assured payment to the coach
mm, mm,
only when the quality meets the client requirement.
mm,
So
mm.
I think those kind of algorithms would definitely come into
Absolutely.
play, and it's going to be on demand, high quality service. Mind you, why would a full time employee uh, be not preferred over a gig employee or gig worker? Main focus would be on timely quality output, error free output, right?
Yeah.
and this is like a SOS call from a corporate, and they don't need to spend too much of money to build that skill within their ecosystem, when they can hire just on demand and then move on. For example, wedding planner or a caterer for wedding, we don't employ them at home, right? Only for a
Yeah,
particular occasion we just call them, they come, they do their work, and they move on. uh, Imagine in that kind of ecosystem we would be playing. So we need
yeah,
to be mindful of serving good quality at every delivery. It's not like I did a fantastic job yesterday, today I can do a okay job. The client would not be uh,
yeah,
so forgiving.
yeah. And clients are not forgiving. We ourselves as customers are never forgiving our poor service, right? I mean, be it from whatever we buy from Amazon or Uber, we don't think twice before giving a bad rating because of poor performance. So I think
Yep.
that's what the world will expect
The
as well.
market forces will prevail. Also, to answer Siddhartha Shankar's question, yeah, payment risk will be there. Only those platforms which provide assured payment on delivery, though they would survive, rest of them would wither away.
Yeah. And mind you, a lot of platforms have a robust intake process. So they will
Yeah.
intake you into their platforms only if you qualify based on certain criteria. And you have to maintain a specific rating throughout all your programs. If you don't, then you will be put on a bench where you don't get work. So all of that continues to challenge how you perform as an individual. So it's a different ball game. And as I said, we need a different mindset to be successful as a gig worker.
And the same
More an
thing goes with the
entrepreneurial
corporate
mindset.
as well, right, Gopal? They
Yeah.
they would be getting the same kind of scrutiny. If too many gig workers are complaining against the corporate, I'm sure there will be some mechanism to
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
straighten them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think those are all part of the ecosystem.
Otherwise, the credibility of the platform is going for a toss.
Correct.
Right. Good. So on that note, let's call it a wrap for this discussion. This is a huge topic. The more I dove into internet to find more information, talk to many people whom I know, and with you, Gopal, it's been a wonderful discussion point. Since we have caught upon this wave as it's happening, and pandemic
Yes.
also will play out a few more surprises for us. We should be prepared. As we
Yes.
say, change is constant. So thank you so
Yes.
much, Gopal, for spending your time with
Thank you
us.
so much.
It's been really, really insightful for me. As a coach, I know both the sides of the equation, and I know how we can, kind of prepare the mind at both ends. It's not just the domain skill or the expertise that I bring in, or also a lot happens here, how I prepare
Mindset.
myself uh, in this journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Really
so
appreciate.
much. Appreciate it. I hope I was able to help people who listen to this session, and look forward to be in touch. Whoever requires any further insights, guidance, and thank you for the opportunity, Bhaskar. Really enjoyed being on the show.
Same here, Gopal. And for those who have joined in for the first time, please do consider subscribing so that you can get notifications whenever we add a new video or any live sessions that we do with experts like Gopal. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Stay
Thank
safe.
you.
Bye.
Bye bye.